So welcome everybody to this session, Breaking the Assessment Bottleneck, Finding Human AI Balance in Feedback at Scale. And so first off, I'd like to thank CITL for hosting the Fall into AI series. And we're very thankful to be here. And we think this is a great event you all are doing, great series, bringing people from across campus together to chat about AI. So with that, welcome everybody. Here in the room and then online or watching the recording. My name is Adam King. I'm Director of Gies Innovation and Transformation, and I'm joined by my colleague here today.
Hello, I'm Julia Sabin. I'm Innovation Researcher at Gies Innovation and Transformation.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like we're on a podcast here. We don't usually present sitting next to each other like this, so this is kind of nice. So we work at the Gies College of Business on the Innovation and Transformation team, and that team's mission is to do pilots and experiments and to accelerate and amplify innovations across our college. We have a link there to the slides if you'd like to get a PDF version and to follow along with that. So maybe someone can drop that in the chat. That would be awesome. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So at the Gies College of Business, we have about 6,000 online degree students spread across what we call our iDegree students, our iDegree programs. Those are MOOC-based, so they're on Coursera. They're high quality, low cost, and the courses vary in length. And then we have about 4,000 on-campus students as well in a variety of undergraduate and graduate programs. So that's the context that we work within. And so one of the things that we've been working on for a number of years now is seeing if we can use AI to help us on assessment. And assessment many times can be a bottleneck. And so we've been working on this for a while. We're going to walk you through our journey here and the experiments, the things we've tried, our fears, our trepidation, also what we've learned along the way and some of our successes too. So first off, we started with our ideals. So, what did we want to do here with assessment? How are we doing, etc. How can we benchmark things? So that's where we started. And so one of the things we asked ourselves was, why are we grading? Why are we providing feedback? And so, if folks want to maybe add their thoughts in the chat here, we'd love to hear what you think about grading and why you do it. I would be curious to hear, is it important? Who is it important to? Do you like to grade? So I think we can probably agree that it's very important to the students. Depending on how the assessment is set up, maybe it's a learning opportunity, maybe it's not. So yes, it can be a way to help students improve, definitely, or to show, whether they've gained those skills or not. Someone in the chat said it's the least favorite thing that they did. So yeah, I think that's probably a shared sentiment. And so what we wanted to kind of aspire to was that, we saw assessment as improving learning through consistent, timely, personalized, high quality grades and feedback. So that's what we wanted to do here. And when we were thinking about the constraints within courses, small courses as well, but really magnified in these larger at-scale courses, these things can be at odds sometimes. And so what I mean by at-scale courses is that a lot of times you might have these large lecture courses, and certainly, in iDegrees, those programs, those online programs are at scale. So we routinely have courses with several hundred students, even sometimes 1,000 students in one of those courses. And so that can be really, really challenging. And so I think, we can all agree that, when we're grading, we get tired, right? And so consistency can vary when there's multiple graders. Consistency can even vary, when we're at the front of the pile versus the back of the pile, right? When we're working through those grades. And then, feedback can be delayed sometimes. That can diminish the impact. It's hard to personalize, right, that feedback to students when you're at scale or when there are many, many things due. as you're managing more graders, more TAs, there's other costs that go up as well to just administer all of that. And so sometimes, folks do multiple choice tests or team assignments as a way to mitigate some of these issues. But are those always the best thing for the learning outcomes? Not necessarily. So that's what we were facing. And some additional concerns we had, when we think about kind of our, when I think about like my personal experiences when I was a student, it just, sometimes it felt like I didn't get feedback fast enough, or, when I got like, oh, good job. Well, I wanted more than that. And so that was kind of something that I struggled with. And then as now on the staff side, if it would really bother me if a student got the wrong feedback or the wrong score as well. So, Julia, did you have any kind of concerns going into this as well?
Yeah, that was my experience either. Then I got feedback, it was a great job. And even I got A, I want to learn, I want to know what I can do better. So that was my concern when I studied.
Yeah.
Yeah, timeliness and accuracy of feedback is important too, I think.
Mm-hmm. So we saw many opportunities here with AI, hopefully to improve quality and consistency, turnaround time. There's also some pressures on academic integrity, and maybe we could do more authentic assessment with more useful feedback using AI. We could help our support teams within the courses better, spend their time or allocate their time to those things that could really increase, student learning. And then we wanted to think about, okay, how would course design change here if grading was no longer a constraint? So to share a little bit about the types of assignments that are typical in business courses, there's a lot of case analysis. So these are like business situations that we ask the students to put themselves into, and they need to come up with they need to do some analysis and come up with strategic recommendations. A lot of times, so these are written assignments, there's no one right answer. There's a lot of nuance. They're, about 2 pages in length. We also do a lot of presentations, a lot of reports, a lot of strategic plans and things like that. So those are typical in business courses. And, what we would do with our TA teams is that the faculty would develop grading guidelines. And so we have an example of this on the screen. And you can see this one it's 23 pages long, right? To capture all those nuances, those edge cases and things like that. So it's a lot, right, for the TAs to keep in mind. And so typically they would have this document open, they'd have Canvas open, and there'd be grading in tandem. And so you can see that a lot of effort had already gone into standardizing the grading, getting everyone on the same page. But it's a lot. It's a very involved process. So next we wanted to see, can AI grade? What are AI's capabilities in terms of grading and feedback? And so we were looking at consistency and quality was what we wanted to measure here. And how we really got started was very easy. I mean, we just anonymized and did some sample submissions and tried grading them in ChatGPT just to see. And then we compared that to, what a TA would give or what we would give. And we, this was really eye-opening. We saw that it seemed to do, a good job. It was pretty accurate. However, we noticed some things that when we would grade the same sample submission multiple times, sometimes we'd get different grades, right? So there was kind of a consistency problem there, which was kind of interesting. So we saw that it was promising, but we had some concerns. Some other benefits of doing this is we saw some ambiguity in the rubrics that maybe hadn't come to light before, because you can really start to dissect things. You're like, oh yeah, okay, I could see how AI maybe would interpret this differently, or where things are not very clear in the rubric and the guidelines. So that was a really useful exercise. So we also started to look at how humans grade too. And so we did a little experiment with 2 TAs. We gave them the same set of submissions for a case assignment. And while on average, the grades were similar, on the, on the extremes in terms of how generous or how harsh they were being, there were definitely differences there. And we saw about 40% differences there on the extremes. So that really highlighted to us that, there can be, while we saw an inconsistency problem with AI, we also saw that being a potential problem with the human graders too. So we thought to ourselves, okay, if we can iron out the inconsistency with AI, then we can move from sort of this pre-AI sort of reality of maybe ambiguous rubrics, TA variability and fatigue, complex grading guidelines and questions and difficult things, it was difficult to remember everything that's in the guidelines, to sort of a post-AI world where we're working with the AI to refine our rubrics. We're using the AI to help TAs make decisions. We're working with AI to surface kind of things we maybe would have missed, right? Because AI is reading every single word, it remembers everything, in the student submissions. And then AI could also make comparisons for us and highlight things across submissions too. So that was some of the promising things that we saw. So we decided to partner and try things with a number of different companies to help us get past this sort of AI inconsistency. So we worked with Sense Networks, Sense Education, Timely Grader, and then we even did some things in the Illinois Chat platform here on campus. And we'll walk you through some of the things that we tried here and what we learned along the way. One of the ways that we sort of tackled this question about quality and consistency is through this sort of repetitive framework here, where we would load submissions. They would be anonymized, of course, or they would be sample ones. We would compare how AI graded those, the feedback that was given, to what the humans would do. We would determine which was more accurate, and then we would make refinements to the rubrics and the guidelines, and then we would rerun things and kind of repeat. And so by doing this, we actually came to the realization that AI really can accurately grade. However, there's some things that are needed for this to be true. The assignments need to have really detailed rubrics, guidelines, and you need to go through this process of refinement. And that does represent more upfront time, right? By your learning designers, by your faculty, et cetera. So it kind of, it shifts some of the grading time to being upfront. But once you've done this, then that investment's been made. And then each time you use that assessment, you're recouping that investment. And then as we got deeper into this, we came across some unknowns and some things that we were wondering about. We didn't know how students would react to our use of AI grading. We wanted to delve into data privacy more. We wanted to see, would there be any hallucinations with AI and grading and feedback? Should we use this on all assignments or just specific types of assignments? How would this impact our grading teams? The structure of those teams, the hiring of TAs. How would this impact human interaction too within the courses? So these are all things we're wondering about, and we set out to try and answer some of these. And we haven't answered all of them, but we've made a pretty good progress on a lot of these, and we'll walk you through some of these here in this presentation. So next I'll turn it over to Julia.
Thank you. Yeah, so to address one of our questions about how students will perceive the technology. This was an unusual pilot where we tested two technologies, Sense and Timely Grader, but our focus was mostly on, while testing the functionality, we want to hear from students. We want to know what they think about us using AI in grading. This is an unusual situation that students not use this technology directly. They just have their opinion on the technology and benefits they get us using this technology. So the first pilot was a small scale pilot. We had 2 courses, marketing courses. The first one was 4 sections. So we designed 4 groups, divided 240 learners divided into 4 groups. We tested different conditions. We took 3 cases and 2 essays, so 5 assignments. We used Sense and Time Grader, and another smaller scale was 1 small case of 119 learners, but different groups arrangement. So the basic conditions was for first experiment, we release information to students that their submissions were graded by AI and human, and for the second pilot, it was we added 2 more groups: AI transparent and non-transparent. So it's graded just by AI.
We have a question from the audience.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Yep. Mark Palmer asks, can learners appeal the grading? If so, can the AI give a follow-up output to the grade of how it came to grade, i.e. apply the rubric so the human reviewer can appeal, on appeal can examine it?
Yes, we particular Sense, but both Sense and Time Grader at some point, at some degree, they give you reasoning why they assigned this grade, why AI assigned this grade. And it's pretty good reasoning, explaining, referring to the submission. So in our first pilots, graders used that reasoning for the disputes, when students apply. But in general, we found that we had less disputes in general in this pilot. So yeah, I hope I answered.
Yeah, and so the students can always ask questions about their grade, and then someone in the course will take a deeper look. And one of the benefits of these platforms is that things are logged, and so you can kind of see like a history of what was generated, who looked at it, who approved it, etc., or who changed it. So that can be really nice to kind of add. So along with the reasoning that Julia was mentioning, it kind of adds a bit of a way for the course team to look back and see, what happened, and it adds some explainability too, as well for the learner.
We had another question,
Yeah,
if you're willing here. Michelle Bellini asks, as AI takes on more grading functions, how might that influence instructors' sense of ownership and trust in their evaluations?
Yeah, and so one of the things we really believe in is that assessment is a 2-way street, right? It's as much about giving information back to the student as it is, a way to get information on how the students are doing, how the course is doing, etc. And I think that one of the nice things about AI is that it can provide you a nice summary of how the students are doing, what are some of the common things that they're missing, etc. And then you can use that, as you're going forward in the class to make improvements. So that's really useful.
Yeah, and I want to add that instructor agency is put, like as Adam said, we put some work up front. So these 2 different technologies, different way to preserve this grading culture from instructor. In the case of Sense use machine learning and LLM. So by teaching that we build models, we train models to preserve the culture of grading in the course. And the Timely Grader, the process called fine tuning, it's used just LLM, but it's also show great results. And up front, the instructor go there and they fine tune the assignments, see the result and sample submissions, and they say, okay, this is how I want it to grade, or do I want to change something? So it's basically capture your way of grading.
Yeah, thanks for the questions.
Yep. So here we have one concern when we thought about student perception. So many people have a fear of technology and AI. So we worried what feedback we will get from students, but we were happy to get a positive feedback. We during these 2 pilots, we got additional confirmation that the AI-assisted grading tech can accurately grade. We measured accuracy, we measured consistency, the sense, I think, right?
Mhm.
And it showed all great results. Grades and learner perceptions were similar in AI groups and in human grading groups. And learners accepted AI grading. And I'll show you data, especially in AI plus human condition, even higher than just human or just AI condition. So they think that grading with AI plus human were more fair. There's some data. This is the first experiment. And here 4 sections, experiment section, and 2 experiment sections were you see the blue bars here, and orange bars are control sections where we had human grading. And other conditions were the same. So we released information to students for blue groups that it was graded by AI plus human. And for orange groups, we released information that it was just human graded. And all other was the same. The grades were released the same time. The feedback were the same predefined feedback. So everything was the same. So it's just pure perception of students, what they think. So it shows a similar satisfaction, fairness. Students were thinking that the feedback and grades were released more timely with tech and was more helpful with tech and is less personable with tech. So this was one experiment. Another experiment data, here we have the same experimental section, AI plus human grading, and control section, human grading. But here in control section, we added AI generated feedback. Here we tested timely grader tool, how it's generate the personalized written feedback. So the messages were different. The data is about the same, but slightly different. Now a student told that they got a more personable feedback with tech and more helpful with tech. So, but all other perceptions were the same. But the third experiment is most interesting. We did the Professor Hayden Nael, and we worked with technology acceptance model in AI grading, which is a little bit unusual because we don't have direct users of technology, but we measure transparency, human oversight, conditions, and fairness, usefulness, and consistency. Here we had 4 groups, or one group human grading, another group AI plus human grading, and 2 groups with just AI grading with no human involved, but one was transparent, another non-transparent. That means that for one group, for transparent group, we released rubric, and non-transparent group, we didn't release rubric. So it wasn't very clear for students how the assessment was graded. And we see that AI plus human received a higher fairness rate than all other groups, following by AI transparent, and then AI non-transparent, and then human. So that was very promising. We also, so human oversight and transparency have a good, significant impact on fairness and satisfaction. And we have a link to the paper on that, if you would like to dig more.
And there's a couple more questions if you're.
Yeah.
Sangeetha says, I could have missed this. Did you already share the rubric for the case studies and essays? I'm wondering what the learning outcomes were for these assessments.
Yeah, so we didn't share that in the presentation, no. Yeah. But yeah, happy to share offline. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And Michelle asks, if AI can provide faster, more detailed feedback than instructors can manually, is there a risk of feedback becoming more transactional? Could it actually deepen students' engagement with formative assessment? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's an excellent question. It's something we wonder about as well. And so there are some faculty looking at sort of sense of belonging that students have, and whether how the feedback is generated or how it's delivered will impact that. So it's something that we're looking into. Yeah.
Well, and I'd almost imagine, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, that we're saving time, we're getting valuable feedback, but then we can maybe discuss it as a group or do more humanistic things
Yeah.
together.
Absolutely. And the second part of that question was, does it provide opportunities for more formative activities within the course and feedback? Absolutely, right? And so if it takes some of the drudgery out of grading and kind of, maybe frees up the course team to provide more personalized attention where it's needed most, or for you to redesign your assignments so that they can be, you can give feedback more often and more frequently. I think that can have, a positive impact on the learner experience and maybe that connection too, right? And part of the perception too is like, it's not just, an AI just giving feedback, right? It's a carefully tuned AI that the faculty and designers have spent a lot of time working with. So.
Yeah, and the problem we try to solve is in the big classes, this is smaller scale, and later in the presentation we'll show you bigger scale. So in the classes with over 1,000 students, the feedback is transactional by nature, I think. So, when the problem we had previously, we had multiple graders up to like 30 something graders grade not very consistency, providing prescribed feedback. So there is no human input here except that predefined
Right.
phrases. So
it's like having a
so
spreadsheet, the graders have a spreadsheet of feedback that they can use for specific cases, and it's kind of copy and
Yeah.
paste, right? Like that's what certain teams do in these large classes.
Yeah, so by design, the learner-instructor interaction go in different spaces of different parts of learning, in live sessions, in other types of interactions. But here, yeah, we tried to solve that problem of transactional feedback. And another thing, so when we had graders grade, if they had questions on some issues, or they weren't clear how to grade certain submissions, they went to the professor. We do the same here. So if after we trained AI to do it right, we still have some set of submissions which not very clear how to grade, and these submissions goes to discussions between instructor and graders.
Somebody's asking I'm calling it infamous question. Could the grading tool also assess the likelihood or degree to which the student may have used AI to do the assignment?
So yeah, that's a bit of a can of worms, right, as to how well that technology works in general, right? Sort of that's AI detection technology, but certainly you can tack on, you can connect, right, these technologies and things like that. So these products right now are not designed for that. But I could see a vendor potentially adding a feature like that or an integration or something. So, yeah.
So what we learned about perception and what input will be to assessment design. So we understood that transparency is important. We want a student, and it's in general, it's a good practice of good pedagogy. Learners trust more than evaluation criteria are clear. Student learn better than evaluation criteria is clear, or their progress criteria is clear. So it's not just about AI, it's just, transparency is important. Human oversight is important. Students want to know that somebody took a look at your submission. And the ad hoc written feedback add big value to students. We also found that communication is very important, and with that we developed a specific language. How do we talk to student when we use AI grading? We try not to use term AI. Instead, we use technology assisted grading because of possible negative connotation of AI word. We focus on innovation, our language and innovation. We thank them to participating in the innovative grading technologies testing. We ask professors to speak about pilots and AI grading in class, and we provide students opportunities to ask questions about their grades and feedback, as we usually do. At this point, so when we confirmed that students accept AI grading, we want to dig more on personalized feedback. How can we make it better? And this was our other experiment.
Yeah,
Pass it to Adam.
thank you. So, so here we were, our objective was to see if we could utilize AI to provide high quality, personalized, constructive feedback. This is a term that one of our learning designers came up with. She dubbed it HPC feedback. And so the course we were working with here was a leadership in teams online MBA course. So it's a very reflective course. The teachers are all, the students are all working professionals, and they're applying things that they're learning within the course, into their personal lives, to their work lives, etc. And so we were working with 3 leadership logbook assignments on self-discovery. Also, the students were building an action plan, and then on the students' leadership philosophy. And here, we wanted to see if we could work with kind of an off-the-shelf technology, if you will. And so we utilized the Illinois chatbot platform, which is, you can think of it as like a way to create almost like custom chatbots or GPTs, etc., in kind of a controlled environment here at Illinois. And so it's very easy. You just go to the Illinois Chat website. Anybody can create a chatbot, and then you can fine tune it and load your resources and things like that. So, Illinois Chat is not a grading platform, and it's not a grading product, but we wanted to see if we could use it to generate feedback, this HPC feedback. And so we opened up this opportunity to the students a week before the course started. It was a course with 900 students, and right at the get-go, within that first week before the course started, we had 400 learners that volunteered. We were limited in the design of this pilot that we could only take 100 students, and so we randomly selected 100 out of that group before we had to cut things off. And this indicated to us that there was really a hunger from the students to be included in something like this and to receive more feedback, and specifically this HPC style feedback. We worked with 6 TAs to help us with this. And the way that this worked was that essentially, so we set up this custom chatbot on Illinois Chat that only the TAs could access, and the TAs would work with the chatbot, and they had some pre-built prompts that they would use within chatbot to really craft this highly personalized feedback for the learners. The TAs would review that feedback, they'd maybe make some changes, and then when they were satisfied with the feedback, they would copy and paste and then put it into Canvas. So there was no sort of integration. It was a very high-touch approach. It really used a lot of TA time, and we were okay with that for this experiment. We saw that AI used in this way was able to create this really personalized feedback, and that it would have been feedback that would have been very difficult for the TAs to create on their own, and especially with this number of students and assignments here. So how did the learners react to this? They're very open to it. Most of the students reviewed that feedback and reported to us that they applied it. They rated the feedback as either higher quality or the similar quality to what they were receiving before. And they rated it as personalized and constructive as well. Now the sample size was a bit small here in terms of the responses that we got, so that's one of the limitations of this, just to keep in mind. We would have wanted more students to respond, but there's still some findings here. So a subset of the learners said that their performance improved based off of the feedback that they got. We were able to create also to compare the AI feedback to what had been provided before in the course, and we saw some differences there. Teacher feedback in the past was shorter. They kind of hinted at things or used cues to kind of shorten the writing, whereas the writing was typically longer, right, for the AI feedback. And I think that's something we've seen, right? We all see when we use AI, but it is something that can be tailored and customized later on. Some of the challenges, this really was a high touch approach that required significant amount of time for us to set up and create these prompts and create these workflows here. So next, we saw that AI can accurately grade. It can create accurate feedback. We saw that the students perceive it as something very positive. Then we saw that AI could be used to create really personalized feedback. So now we wanted to see, can we put all this together in an at-scale environment to provide the best assessment experience for the learners and for the instructional teams too.
Next experiment was to confirm that we can do it at scale. And this pilot, we already have a couple of this pilot, but this was our first at scale pilot. Innovation online MBA course of 677 learners. And we used SANS to grade 7 case assignments. And that's typical large. So these 7 case assignments took a large bulk grading time from course.
Yeah, they had one kind of due every week.
Yeah,
and you can imagine
the
really,
biggest,
really high turnaround, fast turnaround required.
So here our concern was what will be real impact on human resources? Will we be overwhelmed with process of managing AI, evaluating AI while we're working, or will it work? So we designed a process and we tested it. The key findings was great. Very often we heard from our graders that we have our feedback weekends back because it's downsized the time of grading. We had small group of 6 graders compared to usual foodie graders for this course. They graded assignments in 2 days, which took previously for a larger group of graders 5 days to grade. So now they graded it in 2 days. So we had similar grade distributions, we had fewer grade disputes, and the number I like most in this slide is 1,400 grading hours were saved per course. So we confirmed that we saw pedagogical and operational impact. We saw more consistent and accurate grades, useful and accurate reasoning, which at that point supported graders' decision-making and disputes, but now in our current pilots, we're already turning this reasoning into the students' personalized feedback. We saw faster turnaround of grades and feedback, and we think that it's expand assignments design variety in our courses, because before some professors moved to the simple grading assignments, now we have ability to expand the variety and be more creative in assignments. In operational impact, we saw faster grading, fewer graders. AI provided support for grading decision-making and support for resolving regrade requests. Another unexpected benefit we found in the daily work, the small features which were provided by tools like Sense they speed up work of grading management, graders, because, for example, previously, graders kept the entire spreadsheet where they wrote all the questions or issues. In the system like Sense, they can flag each question or each submission where they have question, and the head TA can go through these flags really quickly. So it saves some time here. But other features like search and highlights of related to the rubric pieces of submissions helped during the grading period. When we did that pilot in the spring, the Tesla case, and the professors announced that Elon Musk, this case is how many years old? Like,
Yeah, I mean,
a
it's
few years old,
right.
and soon don't need to talk about what happened with Elon Musk now and all these Dodge things. So they were able to easily search that in submissions, and they saw a list of submissions that Dodge was mentioned or Elon Musk was mentioned, and easily address that issue in bulk. So
We have some questions kind
Yeah.
of building up over here.
Okay.
Okay. Michelle asks, as class sizes grow and institutions turn to AI to handle volume, how can we maintain robust human oversight without overburdening instructors or undermining the efficiency AI is meant to provide?
Yeah, that's you want to take a stab at that?
we thought that this tools are addressing this, that downsize the, we need to put some work up front to that systems to teach them how we want to grade, but that's giving back after we do that, and overwhelming instructors, it's not the case here, right?
Yeah, and I think it does. It maybe it shifts some of the work, or it's important to include like the learning designers, in on the process, or folks like us, that work in sort of the innovation space, because it does, it's new, and so there is a different type of work involved, and the pace of the work is different, so it's really. Learning designers in the past, I think, work with faculty on assessments and stuff. And so now they would be kind of working with them on a different way, maybe a little bit more in tune to, well, how are these things going to be graded? And let's see if we can utilize a platform to help with this, right? So it's kind of a partnership between the faculty and an innovation team or learning design team. And so that's a little bit different. And I think that's important. So that the teaching teams aren't overwhelmed, or that they don't just assume that, oh, I'll just have AI grading. And so it's not quite that simple, right? There's fine tuning involved and some work involved there.
And different solutions are different models of support. The Sense is more complex system, so we have the entire team working on implementation, but Timely Grader is more hands-on tool, and for instructors, just enough to learn basics of AI, how to prompt, and they can fine-tune by themselves. And when you already into it, it's fast, So yeah, that's pretty simple.
And even from the get-go, right? It's really important to have those detailed rubrics, and sometimes that's missing. In courses. And so that's kind of a prereq, and that can be a first step sometimes for the instructional team. It's like, okay, what are the rubrics? Do we have them? Are they good? Do we need to change them? And that's a great thing to do regardless, right? AI or not. That's,
and we found that this is in our implementation steps, the tuning rubrics, that's a bigger step than even learn how to prompt AI, because rubric, when you define, students should do more explanation. What is more? That's not
Yeah,
very clear. And
there's
then
so much
human use that
nuance,
rubric,
yeah.
they kind of made decision by their own. That's the consistency problem come from. But for AI, we need to be really clear. So we need to define what is more.
Yeah,
Michelle's sneaking in a follow-up.
okay.
Could AI agents and guardian agents be considered?
Absolutely. And so I think that that's one of the things that these companies have figured out, these vendors, is that they're using these multi-agent workflows, and multi-model workflows as well. And so that's one of the ways that they, essentially eliminate AI hallucinations, is that they have these different agents that are specialized on different things and they're checking the work and they're submitting, using multiple models and comparing, et cetera. And so that's one of the ways that they are improving the quality and ensuring the quality there. And that's something that, we should consider too. If, we don't necessarily have to use vendors, we can develop things on our own here at Illinois, and we've got a lot of expertise on campus in AI. But there is definitely, a lot of development work involved to get this sort of multi-agent kind of workflow really working here for the purposes of this. So
I think you'll be able to answer this one fairly quickly. I read that some people find AI responses that are supposed to provide critical feedback to be too shallow, too sugar-coated. Did that apply here?
It depends. It all depends on how do you instruct AI.
Right.
So how do you want feedback look like? We play a lot of that, especially with Time Grader when we have our hands-on experience where we can tune everything as we want, so we can make AI looks more, advanced, or so we can put any dimensions of feedback we want to have and tune it to be the way we want.
mm-hmm.
And then the final one for now, Vanya asks, how many words students had to write per assignments, and how many words of AI feedback did they receive?
Yeah, so that's all customizable, and most of the case assignments that we're looking at here were, 1 to 2 pages long, and I think that's what, 500 words total, or 500 to 1,000 words.
Yeah, so like 5 answers and 200 words each answer, something like that. Yeah.
But we've also done very small assignments through this, and then we've done full-on like marketing plans and things like that, and so it really can vary. And then the feedback can be tuned, right?
Yeah.
So you can tell it I'll give one, 2 sentences on what the students did well, 1 student sentence on what they could improve, or something like that, right?
Yeah, we play with different size of feedback. Yeah.
All of that is customizable. Yep.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. So here's a quick overview of the process. This is a typical course. Of course, each course that sends implementation, which is demonstrated here, is slightly different because of difference in team, difference in tech savviness. So sometimes we put more time in the preparation, but in general, we able to downsize the steps of the traditional case grading process, which so this process is from our first pilot, which I talk about here. So the large grading team, for example, we were able to eliminate 2 steps here. In the large grading team, we had graders and reviewers, and it was the structure of how graders saved questions to reviewers to review, and then reviewers go and check and correct grading. So we were able to eliminate these 2 steps entirely from the process. So the select graders, we have smaller process and faster steps of the process. And as Adam said, that we have iterative process of, comparing AI and human and feedback when we evaluating accuracy, refine rubric guidelines, and then repeat. So right now we are in the loop of, so that our first experiments were more about accuracy of grade itself. We didn't go deep into the feedback, but now our current pilots, we evaluating the AI-generated written feedback. So we playing the messages of the feedback. So we, in one of our Fall 1 courses, we were able to evaluate 100 submissions behind the scene in sense where graders particularly was focusing on evaluating the accuracy of feedback, not anything else, but the accuracy. So we have a prompt for feedback, we want it to be accurate, and are we okay to release this feedback without any changes? So they reviewed 100 submissions, 1,040 feedback instances within the submissions. And from all of that, we had just 4 flags for review. That's mean that they considered that the feedback weren't accurate, but when we went to look for that flags, it wasn't about accuracy, it was about phrasing. Do we want to release this phrase to student or not? But in general, it was accurate. And you can see here the comparison of the feedback in the left side. That's predefined feedback, which we usually released to students in this course. And this was either canned, non-personalized, but for some parts where we need to personalize it, it was time investments. So graders go and look at the submission and write personalization. And in AI-generated feedback on the right, they just need to go, read, and confirm. Or they agree with that or not. And it's all editable, so they can go and edit it if they want. This bigger pilot at scale, we consider it a big success in scaling. So why did we use Sense to do this? Because it's let us preserve grading culture. It's provided high accuracy and consistency, which we measured. We saved, in some cases, we saved up to 92% of grading time. The system is providing useful and accurate feedback, reasoning, which we can use as a learning feedback, and it's provided greater statistics and management, which fasten work even more. So that was our journey so far, but we're planning for more. Can I pass it to Adam?
Yeah, sure. And so we're really excited about what comes next. And so can we reimagine our courses? Again, working with learning designers. If there aren't constraints like this present in the courses, how would we do assessment? And with some of these pressures, right, from the students potentially using AI in their work, how we'll need to change how we assess in response to that as well. But we still need to provide feedback. And so there are different assignment types that we're looking at now as well, whether it's student presentations, really lengthy reports that the students are putting together, student videos potentially. And then, we're really interested in looking at the instructional teams and seeing how they can reallocate their time. What do they choose to do with those time savings within the course now? And so very exciting stuff. We'd love to hear from you all. Our email addresses are there on the screen. We'd love to hear what works for you, what you've tried, your successes and failures. We think that there's still a lot that can be learned here for us and for everyone as well. So, but that's the end of the slides. We're happy to answer some questions if I think we have a couple more minutes.
Yeah,
right?
and we got a couple of questions,
Okay.
so maybe this will fit. What percentage of Gies undergraduate courses are already using technology-assisted grading, or is it just a few pilots? And I know you did more than undergraduate.
Yeah. So in the undergraduate space, we're piloting with a number of faculty, 5 or 6 faculty, and so and within probably 1 or 2 course per faculty member there. So in the undergraduate space, it's a small percentage. And so we did we did kind of an open call across the college for, hey, we have these technologies available and we'd love to work with you. And then we met with the faculty that responded to that call, made sure that there was, a good fit there in terms of what's these technologies are capable of and what the faculty were teaching. So, yeah. And then we're also working right in the graduate space as well, and more courses there.
Sangeetha, do you want to come on air, or do you want me to read your questions?
Sure, I can come on ahead. Sorry for all the questions.
No,
I know we don't have a whole lot of time. So I'm just wondering, Adam and Julia, if AI grading lends itself more for some assignments than others, at least as of now. So that's one question. The other question quickly also has to do with grading is already changing now, and in that most instructors are watching out for AI authored assignments. So I know, Adam, you already answered that this attempt doesn't check for AI authoring, but I think in the future, AI grading will have to check for AI authoring, which is kind of like a conundrum, right? How are we going to teach AI to check AI authoring? Anyways.
So regarding to types of assignments, since we have generative AI started from large language models, we go to words right now. So it will be hard to evaluate the spreadsheets numbers, while some of the developers working on spreadsheets now too. But we started from text format, then now we're testing presentations, and they're moving towards video evaluation too. So it depends on the type of the product we're evaluating.
Yeah,
students, right?
and visuals can be done now too, infographics and charts and things like that. So that's very promising. And so, yeah, and it's an excellent point, the assessment landscape is changing, right, with AI, both on the instructional side and on the learner side. And so, but I think that this gives us, a good toolkit to potentially respond. And, if we are okay, right, in certain circumstances with the students using AI in careful, guided ways, they can do so much more now in terms of demonstrating their skills, and they can do different types of assessments as well. And so, but then we have to be able to provide that feedback at scale too.
And some of these tools, like Timely Grader, provide instant feedback feature. Then student can go in and submit their work several times before they submit the final to Canvas. So they get the feedback on different pieces of their submission to master it better, to master this, learning activity better. Yeah.
Yeah, and that really kind of opens up so many new avenues for us, right? We could even have different rubrics or different guidelines at different stages of the process, so that when the students are drafting and they're getting that instant feedback, maybe we're honing in on different areas, and then when they submit for the final feedback and grade potentially. So it can be used in some really exciting ways.
Yeah, and another exciting feature the developers working on is to compare different submissions at different level of course. So the AI can compare student progress throughout the course to support instructors and evaluators.
So almost like learner, like a look back feature, right? And so that's something that our TAs try and do, but it gets really complicated. They've got all these windows open, of the student's first milestone and the second milestone, and then they're looking back to see how the students improved and incorporating feedback. So from a human process perspective, that's really challenging to do. And we think that with AI, that will be a lot more seamless, essentially.
Well, I want to thank Adam and Julia for presenting today. Very informative.
Yeah, thank you for the great question.
Thank you.
We're good. Thank you.
All right.